basketball was the #1 topic in Israel.
So we have Danny Menken, the director and visionary for linking all these ideas of and of course Tal Brody, who really, you did, Tal, you put Israel on the map. We all know how important sports is. Even those of us who don't track that much with sports, we know that what happens in the world of sports affects public opinion. And you affected it worldwide. So again, I can't stop myself. Thank you again for that. Danny, you started the film focusing on Moshe Dayan, who, you're right, he's an emblem of the state of Israel. Because of his eye patch, and because of that we follow his military victories, and because of that we follow the victories of Israel, and because of that we're all proud. But I wanted to ask you, Tal, you seem to have an extremely special relationship with Moshe Dayan. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It actually started as I was finishing the American Army in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and Passover, Pesach, I received a note that you're clearing out of the Army soon, and we would like you to come back to Israel and continuing the work that you started. And from that time on, he was at every game of Maccabi home game. My son used to sit on his lap a lot of times, and they became a #1 fan of Maccabi.
So would that make the audience just go crazy that there were such high-ranking people that were coming to each and every game?
Yeah, since the Prime Minister came in the finals that we played Ignis Teresa 10 years earlier, that Levi Eshkol, coming to a basketball game when there was only a 5,000 seat stadium, and he couldn't get a ticket for the game, he had to call up to the chairman of Maccabi in order to use Protexia to get a ticket. Now, you don't get one ticket, you have to get for the security to get it, and there's no tickets available, but they got him into the game. But that was the start of what went on. In Europe, it's all soccer.
Right.
And in basketball, the success, because of basketball and the honor that it brought to Israel, not only the pride, of winning in the European Cup of Cups, European Championships, but when we played outside of Israel, for Jews in East Europe, West Europe, who were suffering from anti-Semitism. I don't know, today it's even more than what they were at that time, but the whole atmosphere of basketball and what it was doing for the country, it was changing the country, the mentality between education and sport. It sort of got solidified.
Do you think it was a pivotal movement for the state of Israel to go from, you have 1967, tremendous pride, 1973, tremendous depression, and then 1977, this high?
Well, it was high because after 73, when it was said that over 2,600 soldiers we lost, and 3 times as many, if not 4, were injured. And the country was basically from 73 to 77 in a mourning period, as Michael Ward, the former ambassador to the United States, as he said, that what this game meant to the country was taking the country out of a mourning period into a feeling that we can do it. And as much as the families during that 4 years just pulled everybody out to the street and gave a new wind of feeling that this country is going forward.
Well, the country is almost on a roller coaster in 1977. When we think about Entebbe taking place, and you think about the hijacking, and so and then Rabin with his resignation.
Also winning the European Eurovision and Miss World, Rena Moore. There was a lot of things happening during that period of time.
It's like an emotional maturation of going in and out of high, low, high, high, and then
It was going
really
from
high.
a low of 73 to 77 into a spirit of 77,
Yes.
of things that were happening in Israel. As I say, you saw what the feeling was after Entebbe. You know, and as I said, Eurovision, Miss World, Maccabi coming in, Sadat coming into Israel. You see a period of time which is very instrumental in Israel's history.
Unique and special.
Very unique and special.
Let's go back to basketball for a second, where you've got, Danny, you put, come closer, you put Bill Walton in significantly into your film. He's a hero of basketball in the United States. So 2 questions. One, how did you, Danny, come to know him? And then we'll follow on with Tal. What's your special relationship with Bill Walton?
So Bill Walton was somebody that we chased for a long time after, even though when we wrote to him that we want to tell the story of 1977 and Tal Brody, he immediately wrote us back, everything for Tal Brody forever, with capital. And the reason is that Tal will also be able to share. Tal Brody and Bill Walton used to be roommates with the American U.S. Army team.
The U.S. national.
The U.S. national team, yes. Yes, so they shared the room, and Tal Brody helped Bill Walton when he thought of retiring from basketball. And he feels like he owes Tal Brody his career, or like Bill Walton likes to say, I owe Tal Brody my life.
Wow.
Because that's how Bill Walton feels. So that was one thing. And Joe Maibach, who's my producer partner, made another film with him, was The Other Dream Team. So when we came to Bill Walton, it was almost like we just needed to open the camera and all the flood went on, and he was just like giving all the pieces that we needed for the movie. It was amazing. And I'm very, very thankful for him.
Yeah, beautiful.
You know, there's so much fake news going around the world where you have to read in between the print on every news article and every television show who's trying to sell you what.
Right.
Bill Walton in the movie, you can see that he's genuine.
Yeah. Very.
You know, you see that he's genuine, and you see that he felt what he said. He felt and he said from the inside. Now, when Bill and Walton and I played with the U.S. team in the World Championships, we were roommates. But we were also roommates all through the training camps and everything. He came out of high school, and he was playing with 7 of us that were in the U.S. Army team. That after we won the AAU championships in the United States, we had to pick up 5 guys for the U.S. team in the World Championships, because at that time, NBA players were not allowed to play. So we roomed together, and the coach used to curse us. The coach used to give him to the other team. He did everything to demoralize him. We had players that went on to the Boston Celtics, the Indiana Pacers. They would beat him up underneath the basket, and he would come back in the evenings, and we would talk, and he would say that, I want to give up basketball, I don't want to play anymore. And I have to convince him that he's only coming out of high school, he's going to have a great career at UCLA. After that, you're going to be picked in the NBA draft, and you're probably going to be one of the best players in the NBA. And here, he gets the most valuable player when Portland won the championship. And so, after his son, Luke, got the job coaching the Los Angeles Lakers, I sent Bill a note. First of all, I visited him in San Diego more than several times. He loves a band called The Grateful Dead. You know, and he even bought him uniforms when the Lithuanian team was Lithuania. And Bill sent a note to Luke, and Luke, all of a sudden I get an email. He must have told Luke, you know, that Tal Brody saved my life. And Luke writes me an email, and he says, thank you, Tal, for saving my dad's career. And he wrote in his 4th chapter in his book, he has a new book out, that it really saved his career, that it convinced him not to give up basketball. And I see him at the NBA All-Star Weekends practically every year. It's always in a different state. Last year it was in Cleveland, and because of the corona, I couldn't come into the States. And next year it's in Utah, so I'll probably see him again. And his wife is about this tall, you know. I'm taller than his wife, and he's, you know.
Well,
Anyway, that's Bill Wilton,
so-
and I participated in the movie.
And these relationships are so instrumental. Let's switch to politics for a second. So you say in the film, or you showcase that we look at the Russian team then, 25 years ago, and the comment was, they're evil.
Yeah, that thing was, that era was when the Russians were the bad guys.
Well,
That was then.
hello.
I know. I'm joking. Yeah.
So
But-
what
What
were
was
your
that?
feelings about it?
First of all, it wasn't the Russian team. It was the
Soviet.
Soviet Union team. And you have to understand, the Soviet Union picked from 22 satellite countries. Those countries make up 25% of the NBA today. Most of those players from the 25%, about close to 100 players are coming from Europe. They're also coming from Africa and South America. And even Yao Ming came from China. They got another one in there. But most of those players are coming from the 22 satellite countries. And here comes CSKA, which is the Russian army team of today, and it was the Soviet Union team of that time. And they picked the best players and they put them into the army. And they beat the United States in that controversial game, 1972, where they took the ball back 3 times when the game was practically over. And they won, but the American team never took the medals for second place. And here Israel has to come up to them. They're afraid to play us in Israel. They don't want us to play in Russia. And so they chose, and their mistake was that they chose the smallest town and the smallest basketball court. That every grade school in the United States has a better court than when you saw in the movie that they chose. And it wasn't 400 people, it was 500 people. But 498 came from Israel and Jews from Europe. And only 2 KGB agents were cheering for the Russians. So how can we lose?
Terrific energy. So Danny, you're making this film. How did you find all the footage?
Wow.
I'm sure everyone's wondering, where do you get that film of the guys having dinner and of the Russians, and I'd like to come back also, the secret camaraderie when no one's really looking except the cameras are rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, that was part of the movie when the TV station in Israel asked me to research about it. I found out that there are so many stories that were never being told, and also that there's so much footage that no one has ever seen. When you saw that we cut between black and white to colors, it's because everything was black and white, but we just found rare footage in colors. We kept it in color, because nobody in Israel ever saw the games in colors. So it was just incredible to see all the behind the scene. And I have to also mention and really honor Alex Giladi, who is in our movie and passed away 3 weeks ago. Tal and I were in the funeral in Israel, and he had the intuition to just take the camera and shoot behind the scene 3 hours before the game. Maccabi never let any camera come into their locker room and to celebrate Mickey's birthday. So that was unbelievable. And we found also that there was a crew from Luxembourg that were shooting there. So all that stuff brought this story to life. And we had amazing people that spoke about it. I mean, to have so many charismatic people like the players, Lapid,
That is the Prime Minister.
who may be the Prime Minister, is the Foreign Minister now of Israel,
The Foreign Minister.
and the future Prime Minister. We have Alex Giladi, we have Michael Oren, Sharansky. There are like just incredible people to speak, on top of Bill Walton. And of course, David Stern, that we shot, a few years before he passed away. So, I mean, we were very, very lucky to have all these ingredients. So like Tal Brody said, how could we lose? I said, how can I make a bad movie? I mean, there are directors that may be able to, but I was really thinking that with all these ingredients, I need to be very talented to screw it up, and I'm not that talented, so I made this film.
No, we beg to differ. I think putting a collage together and making it seamless is an art form. Danny, you truly made a wonderful experience. So we want to get an inside scoop. Were those Russians or the USSR guys from 22 different countries, were they bad privately, as bad, as evil as they were on the court?
No, actually, for many years at the All-Star Weekend, I would meet with Sergei Belov, the captain of the team. And I asked him, I said, Sergei, I mean, you know, as a player, to play in a small court, you lose the advantage of a team that may be 15, 20 points better than us, but to play in a small court, and you didn't take into consideration that no Russian will come to the game from Russia, and everybody there is going to be cheering for our team. And he says, yes, as players we knew this, but to convince the political bureau, because who are all the advisors of all the Arabic countries around Israel at that period of time were all Russian advisors, or Soviet Union advisors to all the Arabic armies that are trying to throw us into the sea. So their thinking was that they would be so embarrassed and lose face within the Arabic countries if they would lose to Israel, so they did everything possible that nobody would know about this game, and for sure not to make a statement and come to Israel, and not to let us go to Russia. And they knew it was a mistake as far as the sport part of it, but they couldn't do anything about the political part.
Yeah, and the coach was Jewish, Alexander.
Yeah, Alexander Gamalski.
He had wonderful relationships, all right? I mean, he came
Yeah,
to
he-
Israel to get some treatments at the end of his life.
He had some, cancer,
Yeah.
and he came to Israel. But the first time he saw me was the first time when the Russians came to the United States. Our college all-star team with Bill Bradley and Billy Cunningham, Rick Barry, and we had a great team. And all of a sudden, he came up to me and he says, tell me, you're a Jewish boy? He saw that I was playing with a mezuzah. You know, today you can't play with earrings or things in your nose or whatnot, you know, like Dennis Rodman or, you know, but so at that time, you're allowed to play with a chain. So I played with a mezuzah. And so he asked me if I'm a Jewish boy. And I said, yes. And then the two KGB agents came and took him away. They went like communication. But yes, we did have a relationship. As Mickey said, on the side, they would exchange, you know, things that they didn't have in Russia. They always loved jeans, you know, so chewing gum, jeans, and whatnot.
Did that affect, when you got on the court, did that friendship switch back to steep competition?
Not only against the Russians, no matter who you're playing. You're on the court, you're playing, and you're battling, but after the court, it's a respect. It's a mutual respect, you know, so, yeah.
So there was a comment in the film that the Russians cheat. Other than the part that you, Danny, made apparent to us, could you give us an inside scoop of what?
I don't think they meant the cheating as much as they meant physically rough.
Okay.
But they played physically very rough. Most of the East European teams were not finesse. You didn't see a lot of finesse from the European teams, but you saw a lot of strength underneath the basket. Stephen Curry with the Golden State Warriors, he changed the whole game of basketball, that it doesn't depend on the big men so much underneath the basket. They look to find the shooters that can shoot three-point shots today. And it brought back the possibilities for small players, you know, to have a better chance to make even the NBA, because if you're a good shooter from the outside, you know, it doesn't matter how tall you are.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so it's it changed the game.
Let's go to this before we go to all of your questions. This is such an inspirational film. It's inspirational about Israel. It's inspirational about sport. It's inspirational about politics. and how it all comes together. And it's also inspirational about Zionism. And I wanted to ask, first of all, thank you, Danny, for bringing that in. You probably had an eye to that, as to not only telling a story, but sending a message. So I want to hear what you think, but I want to hear what you think, Tal, as to what did your parents do, and where did that seamlessly go into your own soul, that you saw yourself intricately involved in the state of Israel so many years ago? And also, what should we do about it now?
Okay, first of all, I'll answer the questions of those kids that were here before. Where did they disappear to? But anyway, the young kids asked me before, how about, how did I give up that decision? So that answers your question. Because as I came to the Maccabean Games, 1965, it was the 7th Maccabean, 1,250 athletes from only 25 countries. And this summer it's going to be the 21st Maccabean, over 10,000 Jewish athletes from close to 80 countries. Now, even though that we won the gold medal, there's a fellow, Noah Klieger, that the chairman of Maccabi, I saw that he had the numbers from the concentration camp. And he's talking to me about giving up a year in my life and coming to Israel. The country is suffering from a very serious recession. People aren't smiling. We have Arabic boycotts all around Israel. And if a player like you would come to Israel, you can take us to another level and bring the spirit to Israel. Now, as he's talking to me, I remembered, I always felt that, what could I do when I saw all these World War II movies growing up in the 60s in the States, and as a high school and college? What could I do? I'm here in the States, and I see what's happening to the Jewish communities in Europe, and here he's asking me to take 1 year out of my life. And to put that together, that my father from 1921 to 23 came from Russia, Poland to Israel, and my grandfather 10 years was in Israel from 21 to 31, and they were on the crew that built the first electric station in Israel, Rutenberg, in Naharaim up in the north, and also the first airport in Israel in Herzliya.
Wow.
And first there was a cafe called Galit. They probably changed the name 100 times, but so I put all that together and I said to take 1 year out of my life, and that's what I told Abe Poland from the Washington Wizards today, with the Baltimore Bullets. I had to take 1 year out of my life and come to Israel and try to make a difference.
Wow.
And I didn't realize in my wildest dreams it's going to be 54 years. We're going on our 12th grandchild in Israel. Married to a sister, to Iran, and I'm his sister in Israel. And we have 3 children between us. And we're going on our 12th grandchild altogether. So I never would realize such a thing, but very happy. And I do like to say something of what Danny has done, because I feel it as an ambassador of goodwill from the first day that I saw the movie. And this is over, it's about my 71st or 72nd time, from Sao Paulo, Brazil to Mexico City to China, from coast to coast all through the USA. I saw what it meant as far as Asbara, what they call public diplomacy, about seeing Israel in a different light.
Yes.
And I think that's what Danny ingenuity was with this movie. I feel it every day, every time I go through the movie, I always sit in the back. This time I said because the family is here in the front, but I always see in the back, and I see the attention of the people. You don't walk out to the bathroom, people are not talking within each other. Their eyes are glued to a story which is not day-to-day known about Israel. It's
Right.
a very big part of Israel, this type of story. Not only with Maccabi Tel Aviv. I mean, how do we feel when I said Moki Sagi in Abu Dhabi brings the Tikva because he won the gold medal, or Linoy Ashram, a little girl like this in rhythmic gymnastics. She's winning the gold medal over the Russians, over the Chinese, over
Yes.
the best in the world.
We're all
In
extremely
rhythmic
proud.
gymnastics. And so this was like a start of all the inspiration of many of those athletes in all sports that, hey, wait a minute, if Maccabi Tel Aviv could do it, we can do it possibly in our field. And this was a big push, you know, for Israel, not only in sport, but also, you see what's happening with technology, with medicine, with pharma, with everything that's going on in Israel. We just built a guy, I think, did he go to the moon? Where did he go today?
He went to space.
He went to space, but
It's very close.
or to the space station. It was somewhere up there, but it's only 4 nations that are going up there. You know, we're one of the 4th. So there's so many things going on in Israel that people don't know about, and for sure, as all those places I've been, they don't know about this, and that's the great ingenuity of Danny putting all that. You know how difficult. I know how difficult it was for him. Television only in Israel started after the 6 Days War.
Right.
You know, so where to collect, how to collect all that information. You know, and so the more this movie goes around the world, the only thing it needs is a budget. In the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, everybody promises in Israel. Every organization, they got millions of dollars, but when it comes to helping and doing something, it's always up to the people like that are here and everybody else that supports some organization that's going on in Israel. So
Exactly.
anyway, I always give credit to Danny because he deserves it.
Absolutely. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, these guys were not only my childhood heroes, but the way Tal Brody described it, they were really the pioneers of sport in Israel. So it's almost like, you know, we're talking about, it's like Tal Brody is equal for the Ben Gurion of sport and what is done. He spoke about going into the moon, so that was really for a lot of people. They remember the day they won the Russians, like walking into the moon. We have here Steve Springer over there in the back. Steve, he's saying bye to some people. But you know, so he's we're talking about writing a book about it. We want to make more tours with Tal Brody, with Olsi Perry, and that's why we offer signed basketball by Maccabi Tel Aviv, Tal Brody, and Olsi Perry. I will say that we also have some DVDs with special commentary of Tal Brody and myself talking about it, so it's extra special features, and everything will go to support us for doing more tours. And the icing on the cake is the fact that we want to make a feature film based on that movie and based on the movie about Olsi Perry, because we really think that we can fight the misconception about Israel with inspiring positive stories like that. So that's what we're trying to do. We're open non-for-profit. I thought I'm a filmmaker. I realized I'm a fundraiser.
Yeah.
But we're 501c3 thanks to the help of Mark Pollock and the Giving Back Fund, and we're trying to do the best we can, you know. And I believe that this ball one day will worth a lot more than what it does now. It's a piece of history.
With that, we now turn to you, the audience, and we say to give if you like, but even more so to open doors, to think of all the people you know who might want to see this film, who might want to contribute to the dream of having a feature story, a feature film made, and to continue to expand on the positive public relations of what Danny's doing as a filmmaker and what all of us are doing in our lives day to day. So we're going to start that off with the basketball. And, well, you know, I'm handicapped here with the mic, but go ahead. Oh, thank God I caught it. All right. So this basketball is signed by Tal Brody, and is it also Olsi? And Olsi Perry. And we have one this evening. We're going to have some fun reaching into your pockets for shekels so that you can have this awesome trophy that only basketball players really get. And all the proceeds are going to go towards what Danny, Tal, and Halsey are doing to change the perception of not only the world, but our families. Because I'm sure all of us have family members who don't think twice about Israel, and we want them to think 18 times about Israel. So with that, I want your... It's a 501c3, and Mark reminds us that your donation can be tax deductible once, twice, or 3 times over. So, raise your hand if you're planning on bidding for this fantastic basketball. All hands up. Hands up. Excellent. Now, we have a big goal because we may have a special prize. There's a special breakfast tomorrow. So there could be 2 prizes in one. Two prizes in
The highest one, the highest bidder will get.
But it's really the highest bidder, and the seed tomorrow, I have to tell you, is a $5,000 per person plate. So you really want to stretch and reach. I don't expect 5,000. I will be very happy with 4,000. But we're going to start with a very reasonable number. Who wants to start with the first reasonable number?
I'll do 1,000.
1,000. And your name?
Ami.
Ami's going for 1,000. 1,000. That's a really incredible number. Do I hear 1,001? Do I hear 1,100?
Why not?
Do I hear 1,200? Put those hands back up. Talk to your friend sitting next to you. Combine forces. Do I hear 1,200? Do I hear 1,018? 1,200 from Anat. Anat is at 1,200. 1,200. Do I hear 1,300? A very magical number in Hebrew, 13. Do I hear 1,300? 1,300. Do I hear 1,800? Another magical number in our gematria. Do I hear 1,250 from anyone? Raise your hands, pool your ideas together. Remember, it's tax deductible, it's a special month, 1977, maybe we need 1,277 to commemorate that day. Do I hear a number of 1,300 coming up? I'm going to go once. 1,200 is a darn wonderful number, but anyone want to go higher? Do I see any fingers going up? 1,200 going once. Ami, do you want to beat that number? 1,300.
I'll get another one for my mother-in-law.
Oh, I see. Okay. Then 1,200 going once. 1,200 going twice. 1,200 going 3 times. And so, Anat, you're our hero tonight. Thank you so much.
You have to catch it.
Anat? Marvelous for coming out and spending the evening learning a lot more. I've seen this movie, I cry, I laugh, I love it.